This is controversial, but masturbation is a sin. But you're not wrong if even your pastor has his doubts about this statement. After all, this is one of the biggest taboos in Christianity, especially in the Western context. Religious leaders address adultery, drugs, and even political corruption. But don't talk about this topic. This is serious, and we will see that today. Going back to the Bible, some specialists go even further and research the topic. However, this time the mistake can be made by the pastor or the person who practices this action of not knowing the true definition of the word. Nowadays, it is common for religious institutions to seek to stray from lines more connected with dogmas, and therefore they can completely change the lines of the Bible and its interpretation. As masturbation is more connected to actions within people's intimate lives, perhaps this affects even more the understanding that priests and ministers have about this condemnation made by God. Therefore, to better understand the difference between this sin and how it is regarded by the current church, we need to understand what masturbation really is. Its definition is the action of self-stimulating genitalia with purely sexual connotations. The highlight then goes to this type of friction causing pleasure. If we think about it and go back to the time of Adam and Eve, pleasure was something that came with the fall of man. At the beginning of humanity, God had not created man and woman so that they would feel this climax by touching their intimate parts. Before taking the prohibited bite, this kind of satisfaction didn't even exist. All this shows us how many Christians fail to understand that masturbation is as sinful as the curiosity that led to the fall of Adam and Eve. I read a report in which a biblical scholar, after a lecture on morality, sexuality, and virtue, questioned on spiritual maturity, was asked, "Do you think masturbation is a sin?" At that moment, the answer came to his mind without any hesitation or doubt. Yes. And as controversies are the best way to share knowledge, he still questioned the reason for this doubt. After all, we have become so weak that we cannot even accept what is so clear and logical in Christianity. On another occasion, during a lecture at a large Catholic university, this scholar was asked if masturbation was a sin and explained it as if it were a matter of juggling trigonometry, ending with a clear and concise yes at the end of his description. Not politically correct, but simply a sin. In the same lecture, this scholar replied in a joking manner that a great battle within universities nowadays is defending the idea that masturbation is in fact a sin and not questioning the theology of the body. This all reflects the importance of this fourth theology of the body undertaken by Pope John Paul II to understand the reasons that make the Church so firm and convict against masturbation. And these reasons are not related to procreation, but rather to the heart and the nature of this act. Thus, it is possible to consider masturbation a sin for the same reasons that vegetarians argue that we should not eat meat for magical reasons, as it can be considered an act of aggression against the meat in other human beings since you start. But what about you? Who is always here with us, watching all the videos on this channel? What do you think about this subject? Is masturbation, in your opinion, a sin or not? Leave your opinion in the comments below and continue watching the video to get to the bottom of this subject. Masturbation, in the religious context, has a fundamental starting point. This is a search for emotional fulfillment in a fake world. Imagining a partner in situations where bodily pleasure is the main object of spirituality between two bodies can only lead to dreadful results in the end. Thus, religion considers masturbation as an initial point of a series of wrong ideas that can be part of your mind if you seek your personal satisfaction alone. If we think about the essentials to link our body with our mind through the Holy Spirit, the aforementioned climax can only be reached when the gift is one of the partners. Masturbation, on the other hand, is a reflection of pride, and, in the blink of an eye, You can no longer tell if you are really making the other partner happy as your vision of what pleasure is changes. The search for this spiritual and bodily self-realization becomes much more corporeal, and the pain that you want to alleviate with these actions becomes 1,000 times greater, so that you can enjoy something that doesn't even make sense anymore. Then, continuing with this process of self-flagellation to continue masturbating, you break all the feelings that used to tie love and pleasure together. The body becomes the main object, and all the true emotions that you should be giving to a partner, be it your boyfriend at the time, or your husband or wife, end up being put aside. The only thing that matters is your body and the search for pleasure, which is Saturn, and simply a result of the time you spend with your partner. In other words, you even mold God's plan for humanity. You change the vision that it is by sharing life with someone that we can find this junction between body and mind. Of course, never putting ideals born from your own body above all companionship and love that also make up the Holy Spirit. In other words, it is from marriage and the spiritual meeting between man and woman that pleasures are revealed. Focusing only on this desire and still thinking that your actions are correct is a form of pride. Thus, it is possible to conclude that masturbation is something much more serious, beyond a moment of relaxation in which you think about continuing with your habits. This act is a method of separating your mind from the connection it has with the Holy Spirit to develop pleasure in the self-centered way that God counsels against. Not to mention that it is given in several scriptures that God is the one who has the power to give meaning to sharing different bodies. When it is all about your self-realization, your physical and emotional fulfillment is distorted. There is no way to convince me. I have read a lot of content defending values related to masturbation, and I know about the vast distribution of articles and videos stating that everyone does it today, every single person, or that it is fully supported by modern medical theories to do this. Quit this act. Rare would be those who still protect the idea that masturbation is really bad and can harm us in some way. But I propose to you something that you have probably overlooked so far. Let's use logic and start imagining a person who has spent more than 20 years of their life without practicing masturbation. Well, if this person, who has the strength to resist what proponents of frequent masturbation consider essential for their lives, isn't an example of energy and core values for the world, I can't understand why someone who truly believes in the benefits of this practice and the downfall of modern man would be able to defend a belief so unreal and unproven by medicine or any other area that exists today. Well, people who have stopped masturbating would either not exist or would be half dead if this argument made any sense, don't you think? To further highlight the points against masturbation, we can address a text from one of the greatest figures in religious history, Augustine of Hippo Regius. A path very similar to his traveled for about 1,000 years, totally dedicated to philosophy and culminating in consecration, being canonized as a Catholic saint and valued by the Episcopal Church and the Lutheran Church as the most important. Whether as a saint or theologian, Augustine of Hippo was a landmark figure in this history. He began his journey as a priest, but soon abandoned his beliefs until he found Christianity again. During these years, known as the most chaotic, he would do things that would help the reputation of the Church, such as recognizing the importance of the sacrament of confession and inventing the format of sermons that are still used today as the Church's beginnings, at a time when the rituals were already being practiced. Chosen for Jesus, who, now with wide popularity, began to attract many sinners who were in search of salvation. All these actions were the philosopher's effort to guarantee that the first missionaries who spread the word of the Church, sent on missions to faraway places, would never allow the principles to be corrupted. It was in this movement, even before being recognized as a saint, that Augustine of Hippo became a symbol at the time of resurrection, bringing to the Church the opportunity to renew itself. Returning to the topic of questions about masturbation, now that you are aware of who Saint Augustine is, you will better understand the importance of this character in this context. Augustine of Hippo had several doubts in his life, especially about the Catholic Church, but he believed that his path to sainthood was straight and without distractions. God chose him as an example of a righteous life for everyone that he followed. And it was in one of these reflections, a few years after being chosen as the Grand Bishop of the city of Hippo, that he publicly declared that nothing was more vile than what the vile. Most vile than a joyous act condemning any idea regarding the body as a good thing. Humans, according to the priest, due to their original sin, carried the roots of evil impregnated in their flesh. That's why Augustine of Hippo always associated sex with something negative. He believed that the only reason that noble beings could practice this intimate act was purely to please God, and he followed for many years without deviating from this ideal. In the same speech, Augustine of Hippo goes so far as to invalidate the pleasures that sex can cause to the human body, considering it the most abominable and hypocritical act. He is not surprised that in the modern age there are still priests who have this strong line of beliefs. After all, he went so far as to consider masturbation as the most vile of all things, seeing it as the epitome of human corruption, akin to having sex without the slightest intention of having children. Now you've heard everything you needed to know. Don't think of it as a moment of relaxation after a full day at the office. This is not the same as having a delicious glass of ice cream straight from the freezer, or maybe treating yourself to a new pair of shoes you can wear. If you've been eyeing for months, if anything, masturbation wouldn't compare to the stress of your day, and there's no reason to see it as an escape if you're wondering about it. Anyway, if even after watching our video and educating yourself about the truth of this taboo, you still think you're fine with having an everyday practice, understand that you're actually in the wrong belief. If you truly understand the importance of religious teachings, you will realize that nothing is stronger in changing some habits than faith. If you dedicate yourself to it, you should not fail for this vile practice. So let's recap what exactly are the teachings on the subject. Masturbation is a sin confirmed by many Bible experts. The reasons for this transgression against God lie in the most literal definition of the term. The action of self-pleasure removes from existence the greatest motivation for this ideal of ecstasy, a meeting of mind and body infiltrated by the Holy Spirit in a world where people seek those they love and choose to share shower with. The teaching of Saint Augustine. We saw that one of the greatest names in religious history also condemned this action. And witnessing of the truth that it goes beyond a mere break at the end of your restless day, it is necessary to awaken to the truth and recognize this practice as something vile. Very well, take this opportunity to leave your opinion in the comments. Let's take the opportunity to discuss in greater depth this issue and what you think can be done to convince people about the consequences of this practice of self-pleasure. Wherever the topic comes up, today I ended up delving into a topic that we don't see being discussed very often. If you have been tonic, why wait to subscribe? Don't forget to slam that like button and take a few moments to read the other comments viewers like you have left. If you want to see another topic explored here on the channel, leave your suggestion there. Who knows, maybe in this next video, you might be thinking I am going to explore a matter related to this taboo, but with a narrative of continuity concerning the resistance of Saint Augustine in his battle against what he believed to be sinful. Augustine dedicated his life to regulating a viewpoint completely contrary to the ideas mentioned above. He believed that sex was a vile and reprehensible practice, which he believed to be true, orchestrated by the devil, whose only purpose was to distance people from the path of marriage that Jesus had prepared for his followers. Well, I hope I have given you everything you need to know about the subject in a light and accessible way. We stop here, and I hope to see you next time. I will continue to delve into similar topics aimed at the quest to supplement the gaps that arise in Christianity.